It is the sound of a beautiful idea that is just shouted with this triumphant clarity. Not a eureka moment, a Voolich moment.
Eureka!
Eureka! You have to yell it. Yell it. It's better if you yell it.
Welcome to the JOD Pod, a micro podcast where we interview entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders, authors, and coaches. Today we are joined by Gretchen Voolich, founder of Voolich Coaching. Great to have you on the podcast today, Gretchen.
Thank you so much for having me.
For those of us who don't know who you are and what you do, who is Gretchen Voolich?
Oh, thank you. I am an executive coach. I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts, but really who I am is I'm on a mission to make the world a more creative place, one individual at a time. I sincerely believe that unlocking the power of individual creativity is going to be a seriously untapped skill that people are really going to need to use to get out of this pandemic, to be able to cope with the changing world, and to be able to understand and develop what the future work is going to look like.
When you say creativity, I consider myself relatively creative. What do you mean by creativity?
Yeah, so creativity in its essence is generating something that's both novel and useful. And so novel means generating something that's brand new. It doesn't exist. And useful means it has some sort of social utility to it. And so it's really making the world a better place. Creativity is really important because we're all creative. Creativity is actually an evolutionary survival skill. Its roots are based in if something is going on in an environment, organisms have to either adapt or die. And that creativity is that skill that's needed to be able to adapt to changing conditions. And what's really cool about creativity is everybody's creative. As kids, we're all given the same crayons, we're given the same markers, but oftentimes a lot of times along the way, that skill sort of falls off or we don't use it as much. And so when I talk about creativity is really mediated individually by your personality. And so what that really means in non-science terms is that your creativity and how you are creative is as unique to you as your own fingerprint. And so the way that you view the world and the way that you take in information is going to be very different from how somebody else takes in the world and also takes in that information. And so as a result, there's all different types and variations of creativity. So there's creativity in science, there's creativity in technology, there's creativity in the arts world where most of us are used to seeing it because it's physical, it's on a wall or it's a sculpture or something like that. But there's also creativity in sports. There's a lot of improvisation on the basketball court. There's creativity in the Olympics that are coming up. You'll see a lot of creativity in the gymnastics routines. Even on the track, it's there. It's just in different forms. But what's really interesting is the way that different people are creative is as unique to them as their own fingerprint.
Gretchen, you've got hairs on the back of my head sticking up talking about this. Just to fill in the blank a little bit here about why I'm going to ask this question. Before I started working in social media and marketing, I was the sales director of an apprenticeship training company. And we used to help young people start careers in tech, digital roles in London. And we got about 300 applicants a month for different roles. And I'd say at least 50% of them described themselves, of these young people, so this is kind of 16 through to 21 years old, described themselves as creative. And the problem that I had as a kind of recruiter connecting these people together was the fact that they couldn't see past how to apply their creativity in a job role unless it was designing logos or doing social media. And I tried to make the point. I said, look, I'm a sales guy. I'm created every single day because you've got to come up with new ideas and new words and new combinations, and new tonality. And, there's loads of ways that I was creative in that role. And you've just given loads of examples of different roles that are creative. I'm just wondering how we can kind of break that link from creativity meaning having to work in the creative field and creativity being kind of all pervading through everybody's careers.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think that the pervasiveness and the real takeoff of technology is creating almost a creative crisis, if you will. I think because now we're so used to phones, we're used to tablets, we're used to companies presenting us with certain information in a very tech way, it's really all the same information, but it's within a framework. And so the example that you just gave, what I'm hearing is that people may have difficulty breaking outside of that framework to really understand how to use their personal creative power, which is really what innovation coaching is all about. And that's sort of my area within Voolich Coaching. And so technology can kind of be a hindrance to creativity in that regard. And so ultimately, the way to really break out of that is to put the phone down, put the technology down, really think outside the box, if you will. So think outside the tech. And so a lot of ways to break out of that are to step outside your comfort zone, get outside, get in nature, get some environmental stimuli going on. There's a lot of different things that you can do to unlock that creativity. The other thing that I've realized through my coaching and understanding the science behind creativity, and because it's so personalized, it also means that there's elements of your personality that are blocking your creativity. And so that's really where innovation coaching, which is my specialty, comes into play, which is understanding your creativity variant, which is how you're uniquely creative, then also understanding your personality, and then working with me to be able to unlock and unblock your creativity based on those different elements of your personality that may be in the way. And so what it creates is this almost fire hose, spigot, pick your garden hose. It turns the creativity on. It turns the flow of great ideas on. And once those great ideas start flowing, they really can change the world.
I agree. And I think that personalization side, like leaning into you, not like you can copy people to an element, but like doing where your flow is, if that's the right terminology, I think it can make you so much happier, and you can enjoy work an awful lot more as well. You know, I wish I'd started this podcast 10 years ago. Like, I love it. I love talking to people. That's kind of one of my big creative outlets. Gretchen,
I wish more companies would understand that too. I really do, because I think that if companies understood just the power that they're sitting on top of within their individual employees, that can then tap into that creativity to be better problem solvers, to be able to support a company's bottom line. That's untapped power that these companies are sitting on top of. And that's sort of an area that I really enjoy working with companies and working with executives, middle management especially, of understanding what is that power that you're sitting on top of and how can you use that to make the world a better place.
Gretchen, it's such a powerful message. I'm loving talking to you about this. One of the things that we try and do on the JOD pod is trying to understand people's kind of entrepreneurial journey a little bit. How long has Voolich Coaching been in existence for? Yeah,
Voolich Coaching has been in existence since March of 2020. I launched in the pandemic.
Wow.
This was a huge step outside my comfort zone, because prior to coaching, I spent 20 years in the biotechnology industry as a clinical researcher and then an outsourcing strategist. And so in those roles, I really got an understanding as to obviously hard science, how to do scientific research, how to distill the research into real human being terms. But then also, I really got exposure to how important relationships are, even our relationships with ourselves, and understanding who we are and what are our strengths. And so that really started me on this coaching journey. And so I pursued my master's in psychology. I got my coaching certification. And so now I am on this mission to really help the world become a more creative place. Wow. It's a wild departure from my backgrounds, but it's been a fantastic journey so far.
I bet. Had you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
No, I never even thought that this was going to be on my radar, honestly. And I'm kind of chuckling now that, who is this woman and why did she jump? But yeah, no, I don't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Growing up, my mother probably would have said that my childhood dream job would have been working in the photo mat, which used to be these ungodly little, booths in the middle of parking lots here in the U.S. where you drop off your film to just, be processed. And my rationale for wanting to do that was I could sit in the booth and draw all day.
That was your creative outlet.
It was. Yep.
Yeah. Fine. Okay. Yeah. That's exciting. So you've made the step into coaching. back in the middle of the pandemic. Incredible leaping out of your comfort zone there. To anybody listening to that, if you're not inspired to step out of your own comfort zone after listening to that, give it a go. If Gretchen can do it, if we can do it, everyone else can. One of the biggest obstacles that I often see with people that want to become entrepreneurs or want to run their own businesses is actually getting their first customer. Can you talk us through how you got your first customer as a coach?
Yeah, a lot of persistence, a dash of stubbornness, and a lot of hope. Also, a lot of networking and talking with people. I think tapping into your network is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do to start to get your name out there, to look for clients. I think that stepping outside of your comfort zone is the number one thing that you can do. I'm not big on social media, but I've had to really lean into social media, and that's a new world for me. But there are tools that are there. I know I just poo-pooed technology, but that's really why technology's there. It's a tool to make this a lot easier and to bridge geography and to bridge gaps. And so really lean on the technology and lean on your people that you know and your network. They can bring some really beautiful things and make some magical things happen.
So very specifically, your first customer, you were persistent, you were stubborn, you networked. What actually happened for that first customer to go, yes, let's make this happen?
They found me on LinkedIn.
They found you?
Yep, they did.
Fantastic. That's rare. That's rare. Normally it's someone you know or something like that, but them finding on LinkedIn because you've been putting out content that aligns with them.
Yep, that's it.
That's wonderful, Gretchen. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. So if I was out there as a business owner or leader in a business and I wanted to unlock more of this creativity in my team or in my company, and I gave you a call to talk this through, how would that process work, and what would be the main obstacles that you would kind of help me overcome in that conversation? Great
question. So first, I would really want to understand what's the overall goal, and then really what is it that either executive or team or what have you, what is it that they value, and what is it that they want to do with creativity? Why is it that they're so interested in untapping this? And so it's really getting an understanding as to the why. Why are they doing this, and why is this important to them? I really like to start with value systems and understanding what people value, because that really is the core of their essence, and they're going to always return to that. So it's really important to honor that. I first would like to start with the executives at the top, and my first discussion with them, which is the first order of business, is it's impossible for a team to be creative if creativity is only relegated to those with status. And so it's going to be a lot of one-on-one working with the executive or the team lead to get them to understand this and work with this, and then to also help them remove any unhealthy leadership behaviors that may be getting in the way of them then dictating what their team is doing with that creativity. So that's sort of part one. Part two is really working with their people in the team, because that's really their creative think tank right there. That's that untapped source of creative power. And so it's working with those folks. And so when I say those folks, I love working with middle management. I think director and above is where it's at, because that's really who's next. And so grooming the next generation of creative thinkers or creative problem solvers is really important. And that's going to make that business a lot more successful. And also working with the executive to understand that as well. From there, I sort of break it down. And so on with the team approach, I like to work with individuals to help them understand their creativity variant. Again, like I said before, sort of their personality elements and what's in there that could be in the way. And then coaching them individually to be able to work on removing those blocks to their creativity. And then I like to kind of put it all back together. And so usually in these situations, the team is challenged with solving some sort of a problem. And so by putting it back together, now that all these individuals understand their creativity variant, the executive understands the role of creativity, we can then apply that to the problem. And that's really important, because creativity is important for problem solving, because it's part of what defines the problem that you're trying to solve. And it eventually is what's going to also give you the solution to that problem. I think where companies and executives right now kind of fall down is they think that creativity only is relegated to people with status, those at the top. They don't tap into that team power. And oftentimes folks tend to fall in love with a solution, even though that's not the right solution for that problem. And so that's why we end up having solutions that tend to fail, or solutions that fall apart too early, or solutions that require rework. We have to go back and solve that same problem again. And so it's really putting it all together to understand that overall problem-solving strategy using creativity. That sort of coaching approach that I take, you can use across any industry, which is super cool. You can use that in science. You can use that in laboratories. You can use that, again, in sales and marketing organizations. You can use that to coach youth sports. You can coach teachers and educators with it. It really works across all industries because creativity also works across all industries.
That's wonderful, Gretchen. And I think anybody that is interested in tapping into you and what you're talking about there, like, definitely take advantage of this. Head over to Gretchen's website. It's voolichcoaching.com. Have a look at what she's, talking about there, because as you said right at the top of the show, I think this is one of the ways that businesses are going to be able to come out of lockdown, come out of the pandemic on a high, because so many people's working situations are going to be changing. There's going to be so many new problems that people are going to have to overcome at work, and being creative is going to be a great way of doing that. So, thanks for talking about that and sharing your process and how businesses can tap into that. In the meantime, are you ready for some quick fire questions, Gretchen?
Oh, I think I am. I think I'm going to put my sunglasses on for this. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yes. I love it. I'm going to keep mine off just for now. Maybe I'll throw them on at the end. What's your favorite app that you use every day?
Oh, you're not going to like this answer. Pen and paper. Old school. Pen and paper in my whiteboard. And the reason for that is because in order to be productive and to really get some good ideation going, you got to go off-road. So you got to break out of that technology mode. Don't be afraid to bust out a piece of paper and go old school.
I love that, Gretchen. One of my biggest things that I miss from actually working in an office, and I haven't worked in an office now for about 2.5 years, is the whiteboard. I used to, whenever there was a problem, I'd grab the team, I'd say, guys, let's go in the office. I'd write the problem in the middle of the whiteboard, and I'd just be like, right, guys, let's just go. No, there's no bad ideas. Let's think of how we could do this. And I'd be just drawing arrows and circles, and I think I'd probably frustrate a few people, but that was my way of kind of overcoming any issues. So I'm totally with you on that. I do miss a whiteboard. I've got a little one that I sometimes get out here, but it's no replicant of one up on the wall that we can play with. So thanks for bringing that one up. I'll link to a good whiteboard in the show notes. Maybe people can get themselves one.
Yeah, what I would love is if someone would come out and invent whiteboard paint, because I would completely paint the wall behind me and then write all over it when I'm working with clients.
I think it exists. It does exist. Yeah. Google it. It does exist, because there's blackboard paint, and I'm pretty sure you can get whiteboard paint as well. We had a wall like that in an office before.
That's what I get for not using technology apps.
I'll Google it for you, Gretchen, and I'll send you a link. That's fine. What's your most recommended book, Gretchen?
Oh my goodness. I absolutely adore the book, The Upside of Your Dark Side by Dr. Todd Kashdan. He is a researcher and a psychologist at George Mason University. And the reason why I love this book is because it's all about living as your whole self and not just your best self, which I think is so important. Because when we oftentimes think of, your best self, that omits a lot of negative emotions like anger, sadness, anxiety, impatience, other things like that. However, those emotions are there for a reason, and they have evolutionary roots, just like creativity does. Anger can actually spur us to action. Sadness can cause us to rest and recover and keep ourselves safe. Disgust keeps us safe from pathogens, believe it or not. That's why we get so grossed out by things like garbage and trash in the ground and coronavirus. So, yeah. So those emotions are there for a reason. They're really important. And really living as your whole self and honoring those emotions, the good with the bad, is really important as well.
That sounds like such a useful message for anybody nowadays as well. I'm sure people's emotions have been up and down for the last 18 months or so. And learning how to capture those. Like, I don't think I'm there yet. But that's a really great recommendation. Thanks, Gretchen. Could you give me the name of the author again? Dr.
Todd Kashdan.
Todd Kashdan. There we go. Awesome. Thank you. Who's your favorite podcaster or YouTuber?
I'm a big fan of Max Linsky. I recently started listening to his 70 over 70 podcast, which I think is brilliant. And basically what this podcast is all about is, what do you do with the time that you have left? A lot of times we just hear about these crazy lists of the top 30 under 30 and achieving things so early on. But this podcast flips it on its head, and it's all about people that start doing things later in life. I think it's cool because it really drives the point home that we are who we are throughout our entire lifespan. We may be different variations of ourselves, but we really don't lose our identity. And a lot of times when we're older, we've learned a lot of really interesting things that we never would have really gleaned from being our younger selves. And so I think that's important. That's
such a great recommendation. I've not heard of that before. But that's such a, as you say, flip it on its head. Great idea. It's certainly something that I think will change as well, because, what do they say is that 50 is the new 40 and 60,
like
all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to accelerate over the next 50 years, definitely. So that's a great recommendation. Thanks, Gretchen. Who's an up-and-comer, someone that we should be keeping an eye on as a, future leader, business leader of the world?
I love MBS, not the Crown Saudi Prince, but Michael Bungay Stanier. He's brilliant. He's a very interesting person, and I love how forthcoming he is with failure. But really, he just started this brand new community called A Year of Living Brilliantly. And it's all about, it has a creative element to it, but it's really about living as best you can and doing the best that you can as a person, too. It's about a community sort of approach rather than a top-down approach.
Fantastic. I think community, being social, we've all got that opportunity to be like that now, as even more so than we were before, because maybe technology, I know you're not necessarily the biggest fan of it, but I think, I've made so many friends because of the technology, because of that kind of social aspect of things. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard of Michael Bungay Senior before, so thanks for the recommendation. I'll certainly be looking him up and seeing what he's all about. And where's the best place online for people to talk to you and find out more about what Gretchen's doing? Sure.
They're welcome to wander on over to the VoolichCoaching.com website. They can also look me up on LinkedIn. I have a very active profile. They can also look up Voolich Coaching on LinkedIn as well. I do have a company page. I also wanted to mention a project that I've recently started, and it sits on its own website. The website is VoorikaVibe.com. And what Voorika is it is a very important thing. It is the sound of a beautiful idea that is just shouted with this triumphant clarity. Not a eureka moment, a Voorika moment.
Voorika.
Voorika! You have to yell it. Yell it. It's better if you yell it.
Voorika. I'll edit that bit out. Voorika.
But what this
that's going to destroy. That's going to destroy my audio levels, okay. Gretchen. I feel sorry for the editor.
What Voorika really is I started the world's, it may be the world's first. It also may not be, but it's an original coaching cartoon. It's called the Voorika Vibe. You can go to the VoorikaVibe.com. It's a weekly coaching cartoon that's emailed directly to your inbox, and it's all about creativity, coaching, and self-actualization. Because I have a science background, I take a bit of a science-based approach. However, it's more facts and less macaroni art, which I'm a huge fan of. And it also just challenges people to think about creativity a little bit differently.
Wonderful. I love your vibe, Gretchen. So thanks for sharing. There we have it. Gretchen Voolich is the founder of Voolich Coaching, where she works with professionals just like you to switch on your personal power and find what ignites your passion through executive coaching. She got her first customer back in right in the middle of the pandemic through her persistent stubbornness and networking. Her social media posts on LinkedIn meant that her first customer reached out and contacted her. Her number one app is a whiteboard or a pen and paper. Throw that iPhone away and get creative with some old-fashioned some new ideas on some old-fashioned technology. And her most recommended book is The Upside of Your Dark Side by Dr. Todd Kashdan. Gretchen likes listening to Max Linsky's podcast, 70 over 70. Sounds like a really interesting flip on the 30 under 30 Forbes list. Why don't we learn from our elders, the 70 over 70? I'm sure there's some unique perspectives there that we can all learn from. And Gretchen thinks that we should be keeping an eye on MBS. That's Michael Bungay Sr., the leader of A Year of Living Brilliantly. Certainly sounds like something I'll look into, and I'll drop into the show notes for you all to follow up on as well. Let's follow up with Gretchen. Let's head over to LinkedIn, type in Gretchen Voolich, that's Gretchen Voolich. Type that into the search bar on LinkedIn and send Gretchen a invite. Say that you've heard about Gretchen on the JOD pod, and I'm sure she'll have a conversation with you to see how you can unlock your creativity. Or head over to Gretchen's website, which is VoolichCoaching.com. That's VOOLICHCOACHING.com. And if you want something fun, creative, a cartoon in your inbox every week that helps your self-actualization, unlock your own creativity, head over to VoorekaVibe.com. That's VOOREKAVIBE.com. Gretchen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the JOD pod today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
And thank you for joining us on the JOD pod for today's interview with Gretchen. If you've enjoyed Gretchen's vibe and you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any future interviews with other leaders, coaches, CEOs, entrepreneurs, you need to play the YouTube game. Hit subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell so you get a notification. And let's ask Gretchen a question in the comments below. Ask about creativity, about starting up your own business. I'm sure you've all got questions about that, and I will make sure that Gretchen comes back and answers every single one of them. Please be inspired by what Gretchen's been speaking about today. Go and build something for yourself and inspire the next generation. Thanks for joining us today on the JOD pod. If you enjoyed this interview, why don't you check out some of these other interviews that we've done on the JOD pod. More inspirational CEOs, coaches, entrepreneurs, founders, and authors. I'm sure there's something here that will inspire you to build something new.